Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Nurse Doc. Happy Sunday. It is July 1st, the first weekend of summer, and I hope you guys have been out into the beaches and the parks and all that. We're incredibly excited to have Kelley Johnson on. I see that she just hit me up. Can all of your guests see me? Not yet, Kelley. So we'll be bringing her on in a second. But first, we'll be talking a lot about kind of the experience that she had while she was running for Miss America. Now she's Miss California 2018 and still looking very stunning. So I'm excited to have her on. And we got a lot to talk about. But first, after this. So, thank you guys for joining me again. I just want to mention thank you for continuing to tune in and support me. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, I've had a total of 9,000 views on YouTube, and that's amazing. I really appreciate it. It means more to me than you really know. So, tonight we're going to have on Nurse Kelley Johnson. Most of you guys know that I'm a psychotherapist. But one of the things that astounded me was the poise and grace that my fellow nurse, Kelley Johnson, demonstrated when The View had so many negative things to say about her. Well, really making the comment about wearing a doctor's stethoscope or wearing a costume, like her scrubs aren't important. And it's going to talk a little bit about the bigotry, and we're going to talk about kind of like the discrimination and microaggression behind it. I know people may think that's a little bit far, but when you think about a lot of the facts that I'll bring up, you'll kind of get a little bit better. I did a commercial, check it out, and tell me what you think.
Join us this Sunday, July 1st, for the 9th episode of the Nurse Doc Show, where the talented and resilient 2018 Miss California USA Nurse Kelley Johnson will be joining me. Her experience and tact in handling the microaggressions and stigmas against women is amazing. While most victims are largely invisible, her experience of subtle bigotry made national attention in her pursuit as a Miss America contestant. Find out how she maintained her poise and grace.
So, yes, I brought up bigotry because, The View, Joy Bayer made the comment that she's wearing a doctor's stethoscope. And while part of the conversation was about the fact that nurses, we wear stethoscopes and the like, it really reached a little bit further than that for me. So when we practice as nurses, people kind of like, I'm just fixing my collar. People kind of like have a level of respect for us and or disrespect at times. And there's this misconception that most males are doctors and most females in healthcare are going to be nurses. That's really sad because actually the majority of physicians are females. I think a colleague who does something online, Z-Dog, or another physician that goes live, he talked about how female physicians, when they are mistaken as a nurse, how offensive it is for them, considering all the years of training and the like. I'll be honest, I love being thought of as the nurse. I have a different level of appreciation and connection with my patients. So I want you all to kind of call in. You can FaceTime in, you can message in, and talk with her about how she dealt with it. I think over the last several years, with the growth of social media, the way we handle anger is to call a hoe out. And sometimes you have to do it. I'll be honest, in my years of work, I haven't always dealt with being talked to crazy in a very positive way, in a very diplomatic way. So I'm glad that she was able to. So we're going to bring her in and we're going to continue the conversation. All right? Kelly, you there?
Yes, I'm here. How's it going?
It's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's so funny because I'm like backwards, but I can see myself twice. This is super cool. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule as Miss California USA, also serving as Chief Nurse Advocate. Tell us about what's going on with you right now.
Yes, so I am Miss California USA. I just got back from Miss USA, oh gosh, maybe 3 weeks ago, not even that long ago. So that was awesome. I was lucky enough to make the top 10.
Congrats.
Thank you. I felt so blessed to not only be able to be on the Miss America stage, but also on the Miss USA stage, and then to be able to make it to the live show in both systems was pretty cool. So that was a lot of fun. But yes, I'm the Chief Nurse Advocate for a company called Wanderly, and they're a travel nursing technology company. They're solving a lot of problems and simplifying the travel nursing process and submission process for a lot of travel nurses. And I am honored to be a part of that team. So it's a lot of fun. And I'm so thankful to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Well, again, it means so much to me because I'm going to bring up a picture. I used to work for American Nurses Association here in New York with a fabulous executive director called Karen Ballard. And like when this came out and this whole storm happened, nurses really band together behind this issue because it was I think it raised up a lot of stuff that happens for us as nurses. And so we did this, show me your stethoscope, and the picture, if we're going to bring it up, was part of that. And again, the guy is me, and the short lady is Karen Ballard. And it was on our American Nurses Association of New York. And we got a great response. And I mean, it happened all over the country. How did that make you feel?
It was the best. I had so many different people reach out to me. I had so many letters and photos and tags on all social media platforms. It was really a movement. It really was. It was such a teachable moment, I think, in nursing history, and it was a pretty incredible movement. But we had so many nurses that were sending me photos of, 15 nurses lined up and their one physician with like 40 stethoscopes around his or her neck, and that was super cool. It was just kind of a moment, I think, in time where we were able to stand up and say, this isn't okay. Because I think a lot of the times as nurses, we're an incredibly humble profession. And I think that's one of the best things about us is that we don't need constant recognition. I think there's a lot of misinformation and a lack of, education for the public on what we actually do. I think a lot of people think we do a lot less than what our job description actually allows us and asks us to do. So I think it was such a teachable moment. It was a really cool moment in time where nurses, instead of having to be, in that humble space of like, it's okay, I don't need the recognition, even though, that was my call or that was my save or that was whatever. We've just kind of let that slide. But that was a moment in time where we were like, we do way too much to be undermined by an entire country. And it was actually the exact opposite. There were so many people who have either known a nurse, been a nurse, or been helped by a nurse that stood up for us. So it was a pretty cool moment in my life, but it was even better because it was great for nursing.
Right. So true. And one of the things that I was actually pretty proud of is several major endorsers stood behind nurses. Like Johnson & Johnson was one. They pulled like their support. I think it was an amazing time. And one of the other things you said is that we're humble. And what really impressed me was the fact that you remained so humble throughout all of this, because part of me would have been like, I'm pretty beautiful, so and you sit behind a desk and you're fat, so sorry.
No.
I'm trying.
So
I'm working on me.
That is so funny. Well, I just kind of realized in that moment that all of a sudden it was not about me. I was not even at Miss America to be Kelley Johnson, Miss Colorado. I was at Miss America to do this change for nursing. Now hindsight is 2020, and looking back, it was like there was nothing else that my life was meant to do. And because it kind of ripped me out of my bedside nursing and put me on this public speaking path, which I have thoroughly enjoyed, it kind of became a point where I had to be humbled a little bit, because I wasn't that experienced veteran nurse, and yet I was still the one speaking on behalf of all of us and defending our profession nationally and publicly. And so it kind of humbled me a little bit, but it also humbled me because it gave me the opportunity to represent nursing. I love this profession with everything in me, and to be able to stand up for us and speak for us and teach other people why those comments were so ignorant and so hurtful to people, but also use them as such a blessing in disguise to unite our profession was something that I mean, it was just an incredible blessing for me. But yeah, it did. It definitely humbled me. I think it definitely humbled the people on The View. And what an awesome moment for healthcare. It really was. It was a very teachable moment where we could actually explain why, when people assume that nurses maybe don't do something or only do vitals or whatever it may be, that they're, the misconception is, or that they're just women, or, we see the Halloween costumes. There's so many stigmas that surround our profession that I think doesn't even cross people's minds, which is so funny, that we have to correct, though. We do have to correct them. And so to be given that opportunity was pretty remarkable.
Right. I so agree with you. And you brought it up. I mean, looking back, you said hindsight 2020, you recognize it was bigger than you. Do you think that supported you, or in some ways affected you becoming Miss California USA? Or no, you think they were independent one of one another?
Sure. I mean, I definitely think it was independent of becoming Miss California USA, but I do think it had an incredible impact on just my life in general after Miss America. I had a full-time nights position in the CTS ICU, and then all of a sudden I was flying every 48 hours to give another national public speech. I mean, my biggest public speech to date was in Boston for 9,500 people,
Wow.
But I've given 70. Yeah, I've given 70, and I speak about what, happened with Miss America and everything that happened afterwards. I definitely think it had an impact on my life and sent me to California. But no, I think they were definitely two completely separate instances. At least I would hope that would be the case. I would hope that I, won the pageant fair and square, which is exactly what I believe happened. But it is something, though, that I think helped me on my journey to Miss California. The interview prep that you gain, and the skills that I've gained giving this many public speeches and flying, and this kind of experience is something that I think helped me in my pageant system and in my pageant career. But it also was the reason why I continued to pursue pageantry. I wanted to continue the momentum for nursing, and I enjoy the audience and the microphone that pageantry gives me and my profession. So it I kind of think it goes both ways, but
right.
I definitely believe that, winning Miss California was separate of that experience, but I think that experience absolutely helped me prepare for winning. So right. I was very lucky, though. California is a huge state. I feel very honored to be represented. It is a huge
state.
Yeah, I feel very honored. It's an incredible honor, and I just can't. I'm still so close to so many of the women and the organization I just really respect and love. So it's been a great couple of years. We'll just put it at that.
Well, when I made the post of the video, I got an email from the dean from the School of Nursing at University of Alabama. I think her name is Ramparski. She's Miss Pennsylvania. She's also a nurse, and she graduated from University of Alabama. And you inspired her to follow her dream and enter into the pageant world. And that's so amazing.
It's such a special thing to hear that. I was just with my family in Colorado this last weekend, and we were walking through our hometown at a festival, and someone stopped me and they said, "Are you Nurse Kelley?" And I thought to myself, how is this still happening 3 years later? And she said, "I went back to nursing school and I became a nurse, and I can take care of my family," and all these things that she mentioned, these wonderful things she's done for herself. And she said, "But I did that because of your monologue." She said, "What you did for nursing, you gave us this new light, you ignited this new enthusiasm within our profession." And I felt so humbled by that moment. And I don't share that to boast. I share that to just to hopefully kind of inspire, other maybe nurses who possibly could be struggling with either going back to school or finishing school, or even just where they're at. Maybe they're experiencing possible burnout. But that's what I hope to be, is that light for these nurses, because I know how badly we want and we need nurses in this profession. And so to be able to inspire them to continue is something I hope to do for a long time. But that is so sweet that you just told me that, because it never gets old. I'm so encouraged by people who feel that my voice is inspiring, because I'm really trying my absolute best to continue to have it heard.
Right. And you, in some ways, walked away from the CTSICU. And for people who are watching who don't know what that is, cardiothoracic surgical intensive care unit is an incredibly rigorous nursing, and not to demean or minimize the other specialties, but it's open heart, basically.
Yep.
And you were flying and coming back to work and doing all of that. You are amazing.
Well, thank you. After everything that happened with Miss America, like I said, I had to step away, and that was kind of it's just kind of one of those moments where you're like, dang, like, do I have to leave? But I just felt like the nursing profession was calling me in a different direction. I was supposed to be an advocate. I was supposed to switch roles from being bedside to education. And I believe me, I didn't ask really for this life. It was kind of like the Nurse Kelley life found me after Miss America. I just did what I wanted to do up on that stage for the people that I love and the profession that I care about. And then all of a sudden it changed my entire life. So it was a crazy time when I first won and was continuing to work. And then after that, it was just kind of like I had to step away, but I knew I was going to still be doing good for the profession. So you're right, though. Time management has been my best buddy the last 4 years, I tell you.
One of the interesting things that comes up for me over the course of time is, you remember probably the conversation about nurses eat their young. And this whole perception that nurses used to be very kind of like rigid, nurse ratchet. If anybody's ever seen that movie, I'm dating myself. Nursing has come to such a different place. And you represent that different place for me and for so many people, where nursing is, where it's not just at the bedside and it's not just in informatics, it's on platforms, it's having conversations and dialogue about what we really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think the whole, nursing, especially with all the legislation that's passed and that, it's given us more autonomy, all the various degrees that we can have in continuing education. I think nursing has just completely changed from even just 5 years ago. You know what I'm saying? It's like everything is so different, what we're allowed to do and the pathways in nursing that we can pursue. But I think you're absolutely right. It's changed so miraculously over the last 5 years that it's kind of hard to keep up sometimes.
I can imagine.
So, I'm like, what do I even have to be at? It's so funny because there's so many different things that you can do in nursing and your license allows you to do. And it's kind of crazy. Like, am I really allowed to do that? And then, yes, you are. It's wild. And I'm currently pursuing my doctorate degree in nursing, and I'm going to be an FNP at the end. Yeah, in a couple of years. But I'm so excited for that. But it's kind of wild how we really have stepped into this role of leadership, and we really have kind of commanded, commanded our role on the healthcare team, but also kind of demanded that respect that I believe that all nurses deserve from the healthcare team members around them, and with reciprocating that respect for them as well. But I really believe that we have changed this mentality of being the assistant, or being the servant, or doing the vitals, or just handing pens and getting coffee. I mean, that was never really what we did, but I think that was a public image of what we did. And I think that was kind of maybe the consensus of how people thought that we worked, or maybe thought that what we did, that was the case, but it's not. And I think in the last 5 years, but really in the last 2 or 3, we've really changed that. I mean, I think people are really curious about what we actually do and are kind of now lending the respect that we deserve for the job that we actually have to do, which is incredibly tough.
Right. So, Kelley, I have to ask the question.
Yeah.
You're a nurse.
Yes.
You are a chief nurse advocate. You're in a doctorate program. You're traveling. I'm the relationship guy. And I know some of my viewers who know me personally, like, who is he to talk about wearing so many hats and how that affects relationships? Talk about how, being a nurse in and of itself requires us to give so much, and it affects our relationships. How is that playing out for you right now?
Sure. So when I was in college, right before I graduated my nursing program and finished school, I met my now fiance. So I've actually been very lucky. Yay! I've been very lucky that I met him and then graduated school. And then it was kind of like, what are we going to do? It's been 3 or 4 months, and I think I'm going to compete for Miss Colorado. At the time, I lived in Iowa because I was playing volleyball and going to school out there and just still lived there. And I competed for my first pageant and ended up winning. So then it was like, well, what do we do? Are we going to move to Colorado together and make this step, or are you going to stay and I'm going to go? And it was so funny. We were talking to his mom because he in Iowa. And there's some stuff going on with his school that kind of changed that for him. But he just kind of, we were talking to his mom, and I was like, Matt, I think you should stay. I really think you should stay, and I'll go, and we'll just be long distance, but finish school. And he's like, nope, I love her, I'm going. And he came with me to Colorado, and he finished school online. And then we won Miss Colorado, and we went to Miss America, and then we moved out to Los Angeles. I know. So it's been a crazy 3.5, almost 4 years, but we went to move to Los Angeles, and then I won Miss California, and he was my biggest supporter. And he had purchased the ring before Miss California. And then all of a sudden, was like, well, I can't wait a whole year to give it to her. So he proposed on New Year's Day. Right. Thank goodness, Now that's exactly actually 6 months to the day today that he proposed. And then we went to Miss USA, and we have 2 bulldogs, and it's the best. But it definitely takes a toll. And not my job necessarily, but just the time away. He's so supportive. But it's just, there are moments where I have to be gone for even a week, possibly 2 weeks, especially with the pageants. They take a long time. And so those kind of wear on us. But no, he's super supportive. And being the chief nurse advocate for Wanderly has been a big blessing for us. I get to work a lot of the times from home, and so I'm able to do things around the house. But that job has also given me the opportunity to really pursue things that I'm passionate in. It's like I said, it's a travel nursing technology company, and we're able to really simplify the process that travel nurses go through to apply and submit themselves for positions at very, very, very. But I've been able to lead and be a leader in our marketing department, and that's really been something that I didn't know that I was always interested in, and then fell in love with. And he's been really supportive watching me pursue that dream too. So he's the best. But I will say this too. Friendships have been different because we've moved 3 times since we met, and we've only been together for 3.5 years. So that's kind of changed, but we're outgoing. We're fun loving people, and we've just kind of tried to do the best that we can and make new friends and hold on tight to the ones that we have.
Fantastic. So
yeah.
A couple of people have questions for you. Are you okay with questions from nurses?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take a moment. People, feel free to message me. I'll bring you in. You can ask Nurse Kelley any questions that you have.
This is so cool.
I'm experimenting with this because I think it's like a great way to engage people. And I've been looking for something that works. So hopefully this will work. Sometimes it doesn't, which gets a little crazy. But yeah, so I had a couple of people that were like, oh my goodness, I want to ask her a couple of questions.
I would love that. Please, by all means.
So definitely feel free to call in. But now I watched it online. What led to your decision to do a monologue? And you talked about Joe. Joe was powerful, and I'm not gonna lie, vulnerable moment. I cried because as a nurse we had Joe so much, and it meant a lot
all the time.
Oh my goodness.
I totally know.
I just had a patient last week. He was a very sick patient, and he said to me, are you being a nurse right now while you go to medical school? And I was like, absolutely not. And I've changed your life in such a big way for you to ask me such a really crazy question right now.
Sure. No, that would be tough. I know. And it's just kind of, Joe for me that was a very real experience I had. And as I was heading to Miss Colorado, I had never done this kind of thing before. And I just thought, I think I sound like Beyonce, but nobody else probably thinks that, and you have to pick this talent. And it's like, I'm 6'2", so dancing really wasn't in the cards for me either. Big tree, fall hard. That wasn't really anything that people want to see. But it was kind of like singing, dancing, baton, all the things that other young women do for these pageants. And I just thought, I don't want to be counted out for the job of Miss America because I think I would be really fantastic at it. But I don't have a talent like that. I was always an athlete growing up. So what else am I good at? Well, I've spent the last 5 years of my life working my booty off to be the most competent, safest, incredible nurse I could possibly be for these patients and these families. let's talk about that. And then I started to think, well, what really matters to the nursing profession? And what really matters to the nursing profession, I think, is respect. We work really, really hard, and I don't think we ask for much in return, but respect and thank yous and appreciation. And I just don't think it's a lot to ask for. And so what I noticed about that and kind of how way that manifested in our profession was a lot of us called ourselves just the nurse. And so I wrote the monologue on how we're not just a nurse, and it's not okay to ever call somebody that, and that we go through a lot of schooling and a lot of hardships and a lot of really rough days, and we miss our son's soccer game and grandma's 90th birthday to be at the bedside for you and your family. And so I wanted to talk about something that mattered. And I think that's what really resonated with people in the pageant system. But yeah, that's kind of where it all came from. Is I hadn't really done this before, but I didn't want to be it, and I had to come up with something that mattered to me. And the monologue, I wrote it on the way to the pageant, and it's really what mattered to me. But that is a true story. All of that was real, and that really happened. And I'm just so glad that nurses latched onto it the way that they did, because I think that happened because it really does matter, and it's a message that people want heard. So I hope everyone was listening,
Fantastic. Well, I'm hoping that my system is working, because I know that there were a couple of people who were going to call in who had some questions, but I don't know. Sometimes the system does crazy stuff, I'll be honest.
It's okay, no worries.
As you know. But you also do a podcast. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so as the chief nurse advocate for Wanderly, we have a podcast called The Happy Traveler, and it's been so much fun to kind of figure out that world. It's a brand new world for me, but it's been so super fun. Basically it's just a way for travel nurses to get information. It's really important for us to extend kind of that information to them. There's a lot of new travelers that maybe don't understand the way that you become a travel nurse, or what it means to go to a hospital, or what kind of moving to a new state possibly looks like, or getting a license for that state. And so the podcast, we kind of answer all those questions, and then just answer kind of what it's like in general being a new travel nurse versus also being a very experienced travel nurses, and different hardships that they face. But that's kind of what the podcast is all about, is we just try to have a ton of fun, but we also talk about things that really matter to travel nurses. The company I work for it's so incredible, and it's so remarkable. And I promise I'm not trying to do a shameless plug. It's very, very cool. I mean, I've worked in travel nursing now for 3 years. And so to be able to see a company that's really changed the game and simplified the entire process and really changed it for travel nurses, that's not a job board, not a lead agency, but is really, a company that's come up with this universal application and this way to submit these nurses where they don't have to feel bombarded and by recruiters, but also that gives recruiters a platform to be successful. I mean, they have navigated the travel nursing waters in a way that has never been done before. So that's innovative. It's very innovative, and it's a blessing and an honor to be a part of it. That's for sure.
Great. Well, I have a young lady on. Her name on Facebook is Zion Days, and we're going to bring her on. So bring her up. Hello,
wow.
How are you?
Hi, I'm great.
Can you hear her, Kelly?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can you hear her, Kelly?
I cannot.
Let's see.
Uh-oh, can you hear me now?
Can you hear her, Zion?
I can't hear her, and I would watch it from my other device, then you hear feedback from it.
Okay, so what's your question?
So my question is, did you always want to be a pageant queen, as well as a doctor?
That is a great question. No, I did not. I did not always want to be in pageants. I found pageantry actually when I was in my last year of college, and I found pageantry through the interview process and knowing that, when I could interview and participate in pageants, that you could win scholarship money. And I had $40,000 in student loans. And so to be able to compete in pageants and possibly win some scholarship money was exactly why I wanted to compete. But I did always know since I was very little that I wanted to be a nurse and I wanted to be a DNP. So that is something I always wanted to do. But no, pageants kind of just, came across me. They kind of found me. But the thing is about pageants is I call it's my sport, and I love my sport so much. And once I did one, I was kind of hooked, and I love it. And I believe in what they do for women. And I have met so many incredible people through pageantry. But that's a great question. And no, the answer is no. I didn't always want to do this, but I'm so happy that I did.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Any other questions, Zion?
Wesley, can you repeat the question?
So the question was, did she feel like you had to sacrifice one or the other, or did you always think that you could do both? Like, say, for instance, have a nursing
Sure.
career and being a pageant winner.
Absolutely. You know, the second that I won Miss Colorado, I remember thinking to myself, oh no. That was my very first thought was, oh no, because I had this incredible full-time nights position in the CTS ICU that I loved so much. I had a family and I had an apartment that I just signed a lease on. And my first thought was, oh no, what did I just do? You know, I absolutely felt like I was sacrificing that. But the thing was, as we prepared for Miss America, I still kind of felt like, man, I worked so hard for 5 years to become a nurse. I redshirted my first year in volleyball because I broke my hand. So I played,
Nice.
I was in college for 5 years. And I remember thinking, like, I worked 5 years for this job. I got my dream position right out of school. What on earth did I just do? Like, I just gave everything up, you know, for pageants. What does this mean in my life? And then after Miss America, it all obviously made total sense. So yes, I made a ton of sacrifices. I felt like, and didn't really know what my plan was, but I was excited for it. And I was looking forward to continuing being Miss Colorado, but I was very nervous about why God was pulling me out of pageants, or I mean, out of nursing and putting me in pageants. So that made me, you know, I just never thought I would win. I thought I would just go and earn some scholarship money. But after Miss America and seeing how everything obviously has translated since then, it's been the biggest blessing in my entire life. And I'm so thankful that I competed ever in pageants and made those sacrifices, because they've been the best thing to ever happen to me. And I wholeheartedly believe in what they do for us and for women and empowerment. And just, I think they're perfect. I think they're great. So I'm really glad I did it. But I definitely felt like in the beginning, I made some sacrifices that have now turned into be huge blessings.
Wow, fantastic. Well, do we have anybody else? Thank you so much. That was crazy.
That was so cool. I can't even believe that, how you just worked that out. That was so fascinating. I was
I've
like,
been
oh.
learning, you know, my whole nursing informatics is kind of going into play. So this has been an incredible experience. And I'm looking forward to all that you've done, all that you're doing. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to viewers. That I'm sure they're waiting to hear from you and not me.
No, well, just to tell them to thank you so much for all of the support over these last 3 years, and to thank them for everything that they're doing for the nursing profession and for the respect that they're giving all of these incredible experienced and brand new nurses. If there's any nursing students listening out there, that just to know that you have to keep going, and that we want and we need you in this profession, and that
We need you.
nursing school is tough. We all know, but it does end. You get through it, and being a nurse is one of the most rewarding things that has ever happened to me, and I could ever possibly be a part of. I absolutely would love, Wesley, to have you on the Happy Traveler at some point in July. So please keep your schedule open for me one of these days, so we can do our podcast as well. But thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Everyone can follow me at Real Nurse Kelley with an EY, and at Wanderly Nurses.
That's important.
And, yes, and at Wanderly Nurses, and we would love to continue this conversation. But that's pretty much all I have to add. Thank you so much for having me on today. This was super fun.
Thank you for joining us, Kelley. Have a great night. Talk to you later.
Okay.
So there you've heard it, guys. It was wonderful to have her on. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to pose them on my Facebook page. For those of you who put it on my YouTube page, I guess I needed to watch the YouTube. Oops, I didn't watch it so well. I do apologize about that. It's difficult sometimes to monitor the comments, and it crosses with people who you view, and it's a little bit crazy. Next week, we're going to have on Miss Sharisa Jackson. She's going to be appearing. You know her. She was on my previous episode. This month is my 1-year anniversary, and I'm so excited because it's grown exponentially more than I thought it would. There was a lot of bugs to work through and figure out, along with seeing patients, continuing to work as a nurse. But I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to have her on and have her updating us about what her experience is, how her project has been going, how she's worked through the trauma that she was experiencing. It's been amazing. But I have nothing else to say. I think it's been 30 minutes, and I don't want to bore you all. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy your week.
We dancing,